This is Hinos the Sport, bringing you that heat and that fire. We keeping the foot on the what? On the X. We keeping the foot on the what? On the next. Let's get on to the video, man. Floyd Mayweather and Javonte Tang. So hear me. Wow. This is what boxing community fan base is trying to do. They are trying to turn things around and make it seem like one is against the other. You can't do this. You can't have your cake and want to eat it too. You guys have to understand what true alpha extraordinaireship is all about and true alpha economics. You have to govern yourself by it. But the only way you can govern yourself by it is to be a true alpha. Let me say it again. The only way that you can govern yourself by this stuff is to be a true alpha. Floyd Mayweather is a true alpha extraordinaire. He governs himself by true alpha economics. What do I mean when I say this? It's only beta boy supreme like syndrome to sit there and to tear Floyd Mayweather apart when we know he is the pillar of PBC, Premier Boxing Champions. When we know upon his pristine foundation of his boxing career, all of these other fighters, the Deontay Wilders of the world, the Errol the True Spence of the world, the Javonte Tank Davises of the world, the Adrian Broners of the world, all of these other sublet boxers are able to build their foundation. It's because of Floyd Mayweather. And because of the career that Floyd Mayweather had, because of the fact that Al Heyman and Floyd Mayweather worked hand in hand in understanding that you had to be an independent thinker, you had to be a free thinker, you had to be a man with confidence, purpose, and an abundance mindset to get the job done. The job wasn't going to get done being under Bob Errol because he was going to be crippled. He was going to be told what his worth was. So we can't disrespect the pristine forefathers of this stuff. Floyd Mayweather is the pristine forefather. He is TBE. And just because Floyd Mayweather doesn't co-sign your boxing community, that doesn't mean you have to take shots at him. Let me say it again. Just because Floyd Mayweather does not co-sign your boxing community, that doesn't mean you need to take shots at him. You have to understand there's rules of engagements to this shit. There's levels to this shit. It's like Luke Cage when Cottonmouth had to throw Tone over the damn building. Let me say it again. When Cottonmouth had to throw Tone over the damn building because Tone stepped out of line. He killed Pops. Pops is Switzerland. That's the place of peace. That's the place where people go and do the parlay. That means go and do reasoning with one another to be able to get an understanding and come to a commonality or common ground. If you want Floyd Mayweather's attention, you want Floyd Mayweather to get behind what you're trying to do as a movement, then there's rules of engagement to this shit. This is a superstar extraordinaire. He's not just going to move by the whim off of the fact that you are a boxing community that represents black fighters. That's not going to happen. And see, we need to think beyond that. Okay, what is your message beyond representing your own? How are you going to represent your own? You see, you have to look at the bigger picture here. Are you going to tear down your own, or are you going to uplift your own? Let me say it again. Are you going to tear down your own, or are you going to lift your own? Or are you going to basically use your own as a scapegoat or as a leverage or as a liability for the other? This is why Hinos the Sport operates under an independent umbrella. Because when you operate under certain umbrellas, you have to follow the narratives that's associated by those umbrellas. Let me say it again. This is why Hinos the Sport operates under an independent umbrella. Because when you operate yourself under other umbrellas, you have to follow what those umbrellas tell you to do. I'm a natural born leader. I don't follow. Let me say it again. I'm a natural born leader. I don't follow. I don't even understand that language. The only person I follow is the man above. Because I'm a true alpha extraordinaire. I govern myself by true alpha economics. And true alphas, they don't follow, they lead. Let me say it again. True alphas, they don't follow, they lead. Floyd Mayweather is a true alpha. And if you're going to come to him, and you're going to want him to get behind your movement, you got to come to him in a respectful fashion. You can't come in with a slick motive. You can't come in with an ulterior motive thinking that, okay, I'm going to reel him in, get him to follow my movement, and then once he follows my movement, then I'm going to kind of puppeteer him on how he's going to dictate the pick. Nah. Floyd Mayweather is going to be doing the puppeteering because he's the superstar. You're trying to build your movement off of that name. So if that's the case, then you have to follow the rules of engagement. This is not no kissing nobody's ass. This is about respect. Let me say it again. This is not about kissing nobody's ass. This is about respect. This is the problem with this Rudy Poo and Plum Plum Brain Classic, Doden Troglodyte, Ultra Fanboy with the Ultra Fanboy Rhetoric generation. They don't have respect for their elders. They don't have respect for their superiors, and they don't have respect for hierarchy. Let me say it again. They don't have respect for their elders. They don't have respect for their superiors, and they don't have respect for hierarchy. You have to respect hierarchy. You can't tell hierarchy how to govern their affairs when you're trying to get in the door through them. And then at the same time, you have to look at it. This is a two-edged sword here. They need to see what your agenda is about. And they need to know that when they put their name behind you and they put their reputation behind you, that you're going to represent them in the biggest of lights. Because at this level, it's about branding. It's about brandizing. And when you put your brand behind something, it's because you know that that something that you put your brand behind is legit. And that it stands for something that has sustenance and that has what we call substance. Let me say it again. It has sustenance and it has substance. Floyd Mayweather is one of those shrewd guys. He watches from afar. I've seen Floyd Mayweather bring up a lot of pro-black folks, chefs, other boxing channels on YouTube. I've seen him do this. I've seen him bring up a lot of folks in the black community. So to tear this guy down and to basically be flagrant about his reputation in terms of him being one way or another, it's unfair and it's basically being biased. But we got to call a spade here. We got to keep that thing real. We got to keep it a buck and we got to keep it 100. This is why He Knows the Sport felt that he had to be the trendsetter and the standard bearer of getting behind this. Because this shit started and He Knows the Sport noticed it was paying attention to it with Javonte, Tang Davis, and Devin Haney. Why can't you like both fighters? Why do you have to tear one down at one expense for another? Let me say it again. Why do you have to tear one down at one expense for another? Why can't you like both for different reasons? Devin Haney has one of the best work ethics in the game today. But he lacks certain things from a boxing standpoint. That's why he fell his ass up under the Mayweathers. No one held his ass accountable. No one held his foot under the fire, but He Knows the Sport after the Alfredo Santiago fight. Because in that fight, he wasn't crispier than a fucking three-piece. He had chinks in the armors. He had a choppy overhand right that was predictable, and he was getting countered by Alfredo Santiago. If you do the film study, and if you are a true boxing eye test personnel, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or if you are a quote-unquote boxing purist, you know what I'm talking about. This is why he humbled himself and said, Dad, chill out. I need to fall my ass up under the Mayweathers. Devin Haney has issues outside of the ring. He doesn't have any issues in the ring. Devin Haney is damn near almost flawless in the ring. You can never say that Devin Haney showed you this issue or that issue within the ring. His issue is outside of the ring, discipline. And He Knows the Sport has held both of these fighters accountable. But holding them accountable doesn't mean I have to tear them apart or throw their reputation and push it and drudge it into the mud. Let me say it again. It doesn't mean that I have to tear them apart and throw and drudge their reputation into the mud. These are two brothers. We can get behind the both of them for different reasons. So if you want Floyd Mayweather to get behind what you're saying, you have to showcase this substance. You have to showcase this sustenance that you're about something that's uplifting your own and not tearing your own down. And I believe that Floyd Mayweather deduced this shit in his Batman True Alpha form. And that's why he didn't want no parts of it. And now he's being teared apart left and right from a reputation standpoint. This is ridiculous. Look at how many young generation black fighters are getting gems and jewels from Floyd Mayweather. Devin Haney, this is not talked about enough. Javonte Tank Davis, it's not talked about enough. Adrian Broner, Floyd Mayweather tried to help his ass out. But he chose to be about bullshit. And he's in the predicament that he's in. If these fighters listen to what Floyd is telling them to do, they'll be fine. Because upon his pristine forefathership, PBC was created. Let me say it again. Upon his pristine forefathership, PBC was created. So we have to respect the pristine forefather. We have to respect the originator. This is the Michael Jordan of boxing, man. Let me say it again. He is the Michael Jordan of boxing. I'm not going to tear down Floyd Mayweather because I like Errol the True Spence. That's my favorite fighter. Everyone knows that. You've been watching the platform, you know what I'm talking about. I will hold Floyd Mayweather accountable when he doesn't know his place and he doesn't realize that, okay, you had your time as an era field fighter. Now Errol the True Spence is the era field fighter. I will hold him accountable and hold his feet to the fire on that. But I'm not going to disrespect him because he's the Michael Jordan to Errol the True Spence, Kobe Bryant. Let me say it again. He is the Michael Jordan to Errol the True Spence, Kobe Bryant. And there would be no Kobe Bryant. There would be no Kobe Bryant if there wasn't no Michael Jordan. That's the cold-hearted, that's the unadulterated, and that's the cutthroat true-teller fashion. Stop disrespecting Floyd Mayweather. Stop making this delineation or distinction between him and Gervonta Tank Davis. Stop making this division between him, Gervonta Tank Davis, and Devin Haney. Because last time I checked, these guys are still working with Mayweather. Last time I checked, Gervonta Tank Davis is still with Mayweather Promotions. So what's the commotion? What's the nonsense? And all of this is what He Knows the Sport basically says in infamous fashion. Stop the presses and pump the brakes on the nonsense. Go sit down somewhere and what? Higgity fucking hush. If you don't have nothing productive to say, nothing that's going to build your own up and you're going to tear them down, then again, higgity fucking hush. Because when it's all said and done, if you're governing yourself under a pro-black movement, then you have to act as such. Whether you have issues with a person or not, you got to learn how to stick together. Other cultures know how to do this shit. They have civil wars amongst themselves. Mexicans have civil wars amongst themselves. Europeans have civil wars amongst themselves. But when it comes time to have that united front, they know how to do it. The problem with black folks, and this has always been something that's been going on since Jim Crow days, and even further, for 500 plus years, because of a mental slavery bondage mindset, it's a divide and conquer mindset. It's a house to field nigga mindset. It's about basically, I'm hating on you because you're not looking out for me, or I'm jealous and envious because you made it to a pinnacle that I want to make it to. Because that's really what it's about. Guys are hating on Floyd Mayweather because Floyd Mayweather showcases to you guys the heights that a black person can get to. That's something that you can appreciate and something you can get behind. Of course, nobody likes the over glamorization of certain things that Floyd Mayweather does, because he does certain things to the extreme. He takes the self-preservation is the law of the land bit to the extreme. I'll ride a little bit on this video because I feel like I need to break this shit down. But at the end of the day, Floyd Mayweather means well. Pay attention to what this guy's done. He's brought up some black chefs. He's brought up black channels. He's brought up a lot of independent black folks. We've seen this stuff for years on Facebook. Folks that have reached out to him, he's brought them up because they came to him with respect. They came to him with substance and sustenance, and they weren't on some ulterior motive shit to try to tear their own down. And Floyd Mayweather was able to decipher through that. And people need to understand, this is a two-edged sword. Just because you think you slick and you think you smart, that doesn't mean the other side is not slick and the other side is not smart. Floyd always talks about this shit, and he tells you, this is chess, not checkers. Let me say it again. This is chess, not checkers. He has the shrewdest man in business on his side in Al Heyman. He has a very highly intellectual and smart guy on his side in Leonard Ellerby. He has a great team. So when somebody like that has a great team that's behind them, you can't come at them with bullshit and expect that they're not going to decipher through that. And contrary to what people think, Floyd Mayweather is underrated intelligent himself. He doesn't articulate himself the best. And maybe he might have some issues with reading. I don't know. Because people always want to put this shit out there. But to me, Floyd Mayweather is low-key, highly intellectual. I see that when he speaks. I could see his intellectual pedigree. So this is not a dumb guy. So if you're going to come to him, you got to come to him right. There's rules of engagement to this shit. There's rules to this shit. It's just like in Luke Cage, when you had Cottonmouth, he had to throw Tone over a roof because Tone stepped out of line because he killed Pops. Pops was supposed to be basically Switzerland. Switzerland is supposed to be an area where you go and you parlay your issues. Where you go and you talk about your issues because there's rules and there's engagements to this shit. You trying to get on because you're trying to get on through Floyd? If that's going to be the case, then you have to come correct, man. That's just the way this shit works. This is not kissing nobody's ass. It's about respect. This is a guy that's at the heights of boxing. He's made more money than any boxer. He's the richest boxer in boxing, damn near close to a billionaire. So there's a respect that you have to show when you come to this guy. Can't just come to him any kind of way. And then the fact that folks have to get sideways or talk too sideways out of their mouths and be disrespectful because he's not co-signing, come on. Anybody could see that a mile away. And if you say you're about the pro-black movement and you say you're about your own, then be about your own and don't tear them down. See, He Knows the Sport is going to hold anybody's foot to the damn fire when they're not doing what they're supposed to. This is why I govern myself under independence. Because I have my independent ability to govern myself this way, I can talk about whatever topic and whomever that I choose to. Because when you fall yourself under a certain group or a certain sect, you have to fall yourself under their ordinance. Let me say it again. When you fall yourself under a certain group or a certain sect, you have to fall yourself under that ordinance. I don't want to be handicapped like that. I'm a true alpha. True alphas don't get handicapped. We lead, we don't follow. And in the cold-hearted, unadulterated, and cutthroat truth-teller fashion, Floyd Mayweather has to stop being disrespected here, because everybody that you like, Deontay Wilder, Errol the True Spence, Javonte Tank Davis, Devin Haney, all of these guys, if there is no Floyd Mayweather, there is none of these guys and their marketability and their ability to generate income. None of these guys are able to stand. The Charlo brothers, it's because of what Floyd Mayweather did and the way that he went out as a boxer. So we have to pay respect where respect is due, because I'm getting sick and tired of the division between him, Javonte Tank Davis, and Devin Haney. We can't like all of them for different reasons. Come on, man. Keep that same energy, dog. Let me say it again. We cannot like these guys for different reasons. Keep that same energy. Anytime you try to tear one brother down at the expense of another, that speaks volumes of a personal issue that's with you. Let me say it again. Anytime you try to tear one brother down at the expense of another, that's a personal issue with you. That has nothing to do with anybody else. So the cold-hearted, unadulterated, cutthroat truth-teller fashion is, you cannot now turn around and get behind and say, well, Floyd's doing this and Floyd's doing that. Because you know what that tells me? That tells me you're no different than reverse bias, aka detractors, aka panders. And that you're pushing a beta boy supreme narrative. Because when you're a true alpha and you govern yourself as a true alpha, then be a fucking alpha about your shit. Because alphas don't get in gossip. Alphas don't fucking pander. They tell you the truth-telling fashion. They tell you their way. They double down on that bad boy with confidence and fortitude, and they're done. That's the cold-hearted, that's the unadulterated, and that's the cutthroat truth-telling fashion. Stop tearing Floyd Mayweather apart for Javonte Tank Davis' sake, and vice versa. Stop tearing Floyd Mayweather apart for Devin Haney and Floyd Mayweather, and stop tearing Floyd Mayweather apart because you just want to find something there. Because at the end of the day, he is the pristine forefather, and without Floyd Mayweather, there's no PBC. Without Floyd Mayweather, there's no guys having their own promotional companies. Without Floyd Mayweather, there's none of this shit. So he deserves every respect. And now, especially after his uncle died and all of this passing down, this crossroad mentality that he has now, where he's passing down knowledge to all of these younger generational black fighters, that's something we got to get behind and we have to galvanize. And if we say that we're a pro-black movement and we say that we're building up our own, then we got to get behind this shit and we got to build this shit up. Because when it's all said and done, if we're not building our own up, then who's going to build us up? Let me say it again. If we're not building our own up, then who's going to build us up? I keeps the foot on the what? On the next. I keeps the foot on the what? On the next. When it's all said and done, man, it's either you're going to build your own or step to the fucking side. Let me say it again. It's either you're going to build your own up or you're going to step to the fucking side. It's really that simple, folks. That's the cold-hearted, that's the unadulterated, and that's the cutthroat truth-telling fashion. This is He Knows the Sport. Check it out.